If you were to ask me to describe how I felt about wrestling in 2025, I would say two things: that it was amazing, and that was not on my bingo card. From CM Punk main eventing night one of WrestleMania to MJF winning the world title at World's End to the very first ever women's blood and guts, and to watch John Cena retire against Gunther on December 13th, I would say that this year exceeded my wildest expectations. So in today's video, I want to talk about a few things: the top 10 matches of the year, the show of the year from WWE and AEW, some of the promos of the year that I liked, and my wrestler of the year from both AEW and WWE. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the top 10 matches with some honorable mentions. As with tradition, coming in at our number 10 spot, we have Jacob Fatu versus Carmelo Hayes versus Andrade from May 30th, 2025 SmackDown. Now, the reason why this match is my number 10 match of the year is because I actually got to see this in person when I went to that SmackDown. Jacob Fatu coming out after Damian Priest cut that so-so promo was pretty awesome. His entrance was amazing. Andrade got no reaction from the crowd, and then our boy Carmelo Hayes, who's him, copying Swerve Strickland. Then they all just went out there and they had a fantastic little TV match. I remember that Jacob was able to get the crowd to rally behind him, and I remember that Carmelo, he got the crowd mad by not picking up that table because we were all wanting it. And one of the spots that I really loved the most is whenever they went through the barricade and then, Andrade was just kicking ass. And I thought the match was fantastic. And the only thing that I guess I don't really like about the match is that Solo came out and he screwed Jacob Fatu out of being able to participate in the Money in the Bank match. But overall, that match was great. I just thought that the wrong person won. It should have been Carmelo. But, to each their own. Coming in our number 9, we have Mercedes Moné versus Athena from Spring Breakthrough Dynamite. Man, this match was fantastic. They did a great job building it, and then whenever we actually got to the show, I think they opened up the show. If I'm not correct, I'll put it right here. Man, but I just remember those two going out and making each other look like stars. I mean, they had an excellent little TV match, and it was just great. And that's one of the things that you're going to find with this video is that it's not very spot-specific. It's really just how I feel because this year, dude, there were so many matches that could have been on this top 10. I was honestly going to make it a top 15, but that's not really the point. Mercedes is an excellent wrestler, and I'm really not too sure why everybody hates on her. I'm not really a big fan of her multiple belts gimmick because my thing is this: I'm not going to go watch Rev Pro or this or that, not because I don't like other wrestling companies, but because I only want to watch AEW. And Ember Moon, a.k.a. Athena, I like that she's the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion, but here's the thing: I'm not interested in Ring of Honor, not because I don't think it's a good brand or anything, but because I work 40 hours a week. I mean, if I can get in an episode of Dynamite alone, I'm pretty happy. But back to this episode. Those two, they went out there, they had an excellent little barn burner of a TV match, and honestly, I hope they get a pay-per-view match one of these days, and I love how they've tagged up in the recent months, and they keep losing. It's because they're not on the same page. But yeah, this match was fantastic, and I'd really like some people to go watch it. Coming in at our number 8 spot, we have Jey Uso versus Gunther from WrestleMania 41. Oh man, let me tell y'all about this match. So originally, Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble, pushing John Cena off, and Gunther was still the World Heavyweight Champion, and then they did their little build, and I thought it was fantastic. Gunther getting Jimmy's blood all over him, and Jey Uso not being able to do anything, and then the promo where he comes out, and he slaps the microphone out of Gunther's hand, and he says, "I'm going to get you, Uso. I'm going to get you for me and my entire family." And I'm going to say this: I thought this match should have main evented over the CM Punk match just because it was better in every single way. Jey Uso coming through the crowd was amazing. His WrestleMania gear was fantastic. I wish Gunther would have got a little bit of a special entrance because he just kind of walked out there. He's like, "Yep, this is me." And then, they actually got into the match and they were whooping each other's ass, and we got some chops and we got some frog splashes. And it's more about the emotions of this match. One thing you'll find is that a lot of people on the internet absolutely hate and despise Jey Uso. Do I feel the same sentiment? No. Do I think he's the greatest wrestler of all time? No. Do I think he's a fun wrestler with a great entrance and a good moveset? Absolutely. And he understands the art of selling? Yeah. And I mean, Gunther is the complete antithesis of modern wrestling. He has a very generic, intro. He comes out with some strings. He comes out with a robe like Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali or Ric Flair, if you even want to go that far. And he goes out there and he just kicks ass. And I mean, for some people, that's what they like. For me, I just need him to work on his promos. But back to this match, it was more of an emotional thing for me just because I really am just happy for what they did with Jey Uso. I mean, him coming to my show on May 30th and being able to see him in the crowd was just fantastic. And this match was just great. I mean, a lot of things that I remember about this match is that everybody complained about the finish. Guys, I want you to remember this. He did 3 frog splashes to his back. Then he put him in a chokehold where he was literally like a turtle, where his stomach was exposed. And the reason why he tapped is because he was in the middle of the ring. I mean, he was getting choked out. I mean, that just makes logical sense. And then to see the crowd explode and him to actually get the championship, I mean, that was fantastic. And then his brother to go out there and celebrate with him, I mean, that was a nice thing. And then that cool shirt that he had, the World Heavyweight Championship, and I actually have it. And yeah, I thought that match was just, fantastic, dude. Coming in our number 7 spot, we have Swerve Who's House Strickland versus Ricochet at Revolution. Oh, man, dude, this feud was absolutely fantastic. I don't remember it being that long, even though December to March is, a couple months. I remember it started out because Ricochet, he wanted to join the Hurt Syndicate, and so did Swerve, but they didn't. And then I remember that, they were making fun of each other backstage, and it all really started at World's End 2024 because Ricochet had a match with the great Kazuchika Okada, and he lost. And Swerve came out, and he threw some toilet paper at him after giving some to the audience. And I remember watching that live, and I went, Ricochet's face is one of a person who's just broke down mentally. Then literally on the very next episode of Dynamite, Ricochet came out with some golden scissors, and he sliced up Swerve pretty good, man. And then after that, that built up to a match where they had the main event of Dynamite, and Ricochet actually beat Swerve. And I thought that was unbelievable. I couldn't believe that Swerve lost to Ricochet. But it would build up to bigger and better things. And then we get to this match. The reason why this match was a bit of an emotional affair for me is because, they were teasing some dissension between Swerve and Prince Nana, because Nana came out on an episode of Dynamite and he did a promo where he was just like, I've been ride or die with you, and I was there with you whenever the Hurt Syndicate, they messed with me at a fan convention, which is actually true. And then, he said, I was able to pull some strings, and the winner of this match will get a world title shot at Dynasty. And I remember Swerve coming out and doing his awesome entrance with that guy playing the drums, and I remember Ricochet came out with Prince Nana's robe. And then I remember, they got to going in the match, and I remember halfway through, Prince Nana just waved his hands down and he left. And then after that, that really fueled Swerve to get back into the match, and then he just started whipping Ricochet's ass. And then after that, Nana came out, and then he got his robe back, and I just remember that match being phenomenal, dude. And I will say this, if you want to say Revolution was the show of the year, I wouldn't put it past you, because that show has 4 matches of the years and 4 of the greatest wrestling matches of all time, with the rest of it being, Sammy Soso. But yeah, this match was just fantastic, and I can't wait for these two to have another feud, another match down the line. Coming in our number 6 spot, we have Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher in the steel cage match from Revolution. Oh my God, what a match that this was, dude. So I remember that Kyle Fletcher, he came out, he did his entrance. Then I remember Will Ospreay had a little bit of a dubstep entrance, and then I remember both of them were standing on top of the cage. that already made the match legendary. Then after that, they started doing some chain wrestling, and I remember Will Ospreay, he does this move where he likes to flip, and he hit his ankle on the back of the cage, and I remember he grabbed his ankle, and I said, okay, this match is about to kick into third gear, and we're not even 10 minutes into it. So then after that, it became more of a brawl, and I understand a lot of people are not really fans of, punch, kick, and stuff like that, but this was more of a story of, I'm tired of you, and I need to move on to bigger and better things for both people, and they just started, whomping each other, and then I remember they started bleeding. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not sure how a lot of people feel about blood in wrestling, but my opinion is this. I was watching the Hell in a Cell DVD when I was probably 5 years old, which I probably shouldn't have been, but I've been accustomed to blood for, almost, 20 years of my life, and I like it in certain circumstances. I don't think you should just be bleeding in every single match on a card. But for a match like this, I feel like it really deserved it, and both guys were bleeding, and, they were whomping each other. The only part of the match that I would say I didn't really like was when Mark Davis and Don Callis came out into the cage, because the whole point of a cage match is to, have those people not be in the match. But then, Will Ospreay was able to get them both out of there. And then the 2 spots of the match for me, so they're both climbing to the top, and they get up there, and then after they hit a Spanish fly. Dude, that move was insane. I genuinely cannot believe neither of them died. I mean, that was awesome. And then the finish of the match. So I remember that Will Ospreay was going to do the hidden blade, and Kyle Fletcher was looking at him, and he kept saying, F you, I hate you, I hate you. So, Will Ospreay did the only thing that you could do after you hit a couple of hidden blades and style clashes and phenomenal forearms. He whipped out the Tiger Driver 91. Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I know there's a lot more dangerous moves like, the pile driver or this or that. But the Tiger Driver 91, every time I see it, I literally think to myself, holy shit, somebody is about to die. And he literally hit him with one of the nastiest ones that I've ever seen. The nastiest one, in my opinion, will go to Kenny Omega from Forbidden Door 2023. But man, when he hit him with that for that Tiger Driver, I said, oh my God, that's it. That's it. And it was. And the way that he sold it and the way that they had to help him get up and all that stuff, I mean, that match was just fantastic. It was brutal. It was fun. And it led to bigger and better things for both of them. Coming in our number 5 spot, we have John Cena versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam 2025. Now, I do want to give a little bit of a disclaimer for the rest of the list. You will not see another John Cena match as a match of the year. Not because I want to disrespect John Cena, but because, there were better matches than some of the ones he had this year. But let's get back to this one. So it all starts back when we get to Elimination Chamber 2025. John Cena sells his soul to The Rock, easily one of the greatest heel turns of all time, and then WWE does what WWE does best, and they fumble the ball. I don't know how they did this. Don't ask me. I'm just a person who watches the show. But then, they have that match at WrestleMania 41. I thought it was excellent. I mean, it really shows what's missing in WWE, because 20 years ago, it wasn't about, here, let's do all these crazy flips and do this and do that. Let's do simple and basic moves and get the crowd invested to the point where they're at a fever pitch, which is exactly what the WrestleMania match was. Then the ending of the match happened. Travis Scott came out. Where's The Rock? Oh, by the way, I'm in Hawaii filming a movie and I'm driving everywhere and I can't be there. Oh, thank you. And then Travis Scott can't be there. Oh, thank you. So yeah, then we go from WrestleMania 41 all the way up until SummerSlam. And I'm not going to lie, the build was fantastic. They had, those promo battles on, the show that I went to, and they also had a promo battle in I'd have to pull up some dates. I mean, you're asking for some specific stuff. I just remember that they had that fun little tag match, and John Cena had that awesome match with R-Truth, that Saturday night's main event. And then Cody had to beat Jey Uso on an episode of Raw, and then he had to beat Randy Orton to get that title shot. And then we actually start doing the build to SummerSlam. We usually get to one of the promos of the year was when John Cena turned face, and I mean, that was a moment and a half right there. He said, I don't want to ruin wrestling. I just want to take this home with me so you guys won't forget me after I'm gone. And he said that you woke me up, and then, when they did that promo battle, and then, he came out in the SummerSlam match. Cody did his amazing entrance, and John Cena, it had his name blacked out on the screen, and then when we got to see that color for the first time in a few months, oh man, dude, the building literally exploded. Like, I'm pretty sure that the building shook 15 or 40 times during that match. Then we actually get into the match. Boy, let me tell you, that match was long as hell. I think it was like an hour, if I'm not mistaken. But dude, let me tell you this. I've never watched a match that just went by with just such ease since, MJF, Will Ospreay, and that hour-long match at Dynamite 250. And, I mean, you'd have to give me a couple more minutes to name some other matches. But, dude, this match was just such a return to form for John Cena. I liked his heel stuff, but, man, you can just tell when he's working as a good guy. It just brings out the best in him. And Cody, as the underdog, he just does so much better as that. And then, they were brawling all over the arena. I mean, one of the best spots in the match is when they go under the stage, and then John Cena, he comes up and he gives them the AA. And then they started using the ring. They used the bottom turnbuckle, like they ripped it off, and they hit him with it. And, I mean, the ending of the match was fantastic because, Cody Rhodes gave him the salute, and then he hit him with a crossroads after hitting him with the turnbuckle. And then after that, he pinned him, and then those two, they stood in the ring, and they hugged, and they shook hands because what a story that they just told. Now, let's just forget about what happens after John Cena bows to the crowd. I mean, that match was just fantastic, dude. And in my personal opinion, that was his best match on the whole retirement tour. I mean, it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I wish every other match that he had could have been like that. Like, the closest we really got was when he had that match with AJ Styles at Crown Jewel. But, yeah, man, John Cena's match of the year, in my opinion. And, yeah, fantastic. Coming in our number 4 spot, we have the WWE match of the year, in my opinion, and that is Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens from the Royal Rumble. Man, dude, I don't know what it is, but this match has just left such an impression on me that I still just cannot shake. Because I remember watching the Royal Rumble, they had the men's match, or then they had the women's match, that forgettable DIY Motor Machine Guns match, and then they had this match. Dude, this match was just phenomenal. The way that they had built it up from Saturday night's main event, from Cody getting that pile driver, then to him coming back, and then them talking about the lineage of the world title and the importance of it, and then they get to the Royal Rumble, they both go out there, and they just start having a fist fight, and then they brawl into the crowd, and then they start setting up all the ladders inside the rings, and then they do the suplex on the ladder inside the ring, and then after that, they get a chair, and they start doing chair shots. And then easily the best part of the whole match for me is when Cody and Kevin, they're on the table, and then they start, fighting, and then Cody wins that. And then he power bombs him onto a ladder, and the way that his head lands on the ground, dude, and the way that Cody was posed up on that table, dude, oh my God, that, I don't know what it is, but that for me has just left such an impression, because for some reason, a lot of people like to give Cody crap because, oh, you were Stardust, and you left, and you revolutionized wrestling, and you started AEW. Man, why do people still bring that up? Like, who cares? He's a made man. He made his own fortune. He made his own road. And I mean, when people constantly bring up that, oh, you didn't help me when we were fighting the bloodline. My brother in Christ, it was 2020, the start of COVID-19. Who the fuck gives a shit, man? I mean, come on, dude. Anyways, that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that this match for me really cemented Cody as a top guy and as a top face, even though, he beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. He had that excellent little feud with AJ Styles, and then he had that great little feud with the Bloodline. Now, I'm not too happy about what they did to Solo because he carried the show for quite some time, if you just want my honest opinion. And then, we get to this match. It was just phenomenal, dude. And the thing about this match that I will say is that if you have a match like this, you can't drop the title just at WrestleMania losing to a rapper. I mean, this put the stamp on Cody that said, I can, face adversity and I can come out on the other side bigger, badder, and stronger. And God bless Kevin Owens, man. That dude took some horrendous bumps in this match. And I mean, I've always felt like I've taken Kevin Owens for granted. And him getting that neck surgery and being out for this last year has really shown that, man, he's just like an undeniable player who just needs to be either in the IC or the main event. And the one thing I will say is that if he does have to retire, they should have given him more title reigns. He's only been a one-time Universal Champion. In my opinion, he should have held the WWE Championship 3 or 4 times. He should have main evented 3 or 4 WrestleMania main events. Him, Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, Cody Rhodes, maybe not Sami Zayn. But I'm just saying, this match just really reminded me, even though WWE sometimes has a muck with their booking, this match was just pure genius. Coming in at our number 3 spot, we have the AEW Women's Match of the Year, and in my opinion, the whole Women's Match of 2025. It is Mariah May versus Toni Storm at Revolution in the Hollywood ending match. Dude, this match was bonkers. So let's go back for a bit. So Mariah May, she wins the Owen Hart finale against Willow Nightingale. She turns on Toni Storm by hitting her in the face with the shoe. Then Toni Storm starts to go missing, and then after that, she loses the belt to Mariah May at All In 2024 in a pretty good match. Then after that, Mariah May goes on an excellent little title run. She has a great match with Willow Nightingale at Wrestle Dream 2024. She has that awesome TV feud with Anna Jay. And then after that, they start pitter-pattering with her towards the end of 2024. And then we get Toni Storm coming back as the OG Punk Toni Storm. Now, one thing I will say about AEW that they really struggle with is playing along with gimmicks and characters like this. Because I remember the entire time they were all just like, oh, that's just Toni Storm, watch this Toni Storm. I'm thinking like, guys, if you were in the WWE in the 90s when The Undertaker was doing this shtick, you guys wouldn't even be on the next show. Come on, get out of here. Don't be doing that stuff. Anyways, that's not my point. My point being is that, she came out and she was having dementia and she had lost her identity. And I remember the entire locker room was reacting to it and it was pretty awesome. And then after that, I remember she won a triple threat match. And then I remember the thing that was just fantastic. So it was on the episode of Collision right after the show that I went to, and they had their promo battle, and she said, Mariah May, I admire you and stuff like this, and Mariah May was just seeing right through it, and she pushed her down. She was just like, you need to go somewhere and you need to die. And then after that, Mariah May, she held up the title, she went up the ramp, and then Toni Storm, in one of the greatest sentences of all of professional wrestling, do you really think I forgot who I am? And then, Mariah May turned around, and Toni Storm, oh my goodness, man, she made that place come unglued. And the match they had at Australia Grand Slam was fantastic. I didn't really like that they hit 3 finishers at the end just for Toni to win with a, small package. But then after that, on the next episode of Dynamite or Collision, forgive me for not knowing the exact one, Mariah May just came out there and she whooped Toni Storm's ass, dude. She gave her a pile driver on the belt on the ramp, and then she said, you always struggled to make an ending. So at Revolution, we're going to have ourselves a Hollywood ending. And boy, let me tell you, they went out there and they stole that damn show, dude. I don't know what it was. They had a chip on their shoulder. They had something to prove, and it was fantastic. So both of them, they make their entrances, and then we get to the fight. This was literally just punch kick to the maximum. But, man, it's more about what it meant emotionally, because this was a 2-year build. Because if I'm not mistaken, this started at, the later stages of 2023. And, Mariah May and Toni Storm, they were together all throughout 2024, all the way up until she betrayed her at the Owen Hart final. And, they were just laying those punches in. One of the things that I remember the most is that, Toni Storm, she cut herself and she grabbed it. She said, "Oh, man, I'm bleeding way too much." And then, she took her fist and she dipped it into the glass. And, she was whooping Mariah May with it. And both of them were just a bloody, absolute mess. And, they were working their way around the ring. And then they went up to the ring. And then the way that it ended, as, she gave her a tombstone pile driver onto a table. And then after that, she covered up Mariah May, for a 1, 2, 3. And, dude, what a match that was. Because I remember after the match, the Titantron, it, did this transition. And it said, "The End." And what a way to end a 2-year story and a 2-year build. I mean, it was just great. And this is kind of my opinion on Mariah May or Blake Monroe and Toni Storm. I feel like Mariah May for the longest time just was struggling to connect the pieces to get the crowd going. And I really think her and Toni Storm being together really showed her how to get a crowd going, how to get, a match going and all that stuff. And then whenever she was finally on her own, dude, she was she was fantastic. The one thing that I'll say is that they were very silent during her matches, and I kind of thought that was a little bit rude and disrespectful, but I loved everything that she did, because one of the things that I really wanted to see when I went to the episode of Dynamite that I went to last year, I really wanted to see Okada, wanted to see Toni Storm, wanted to see Mariah May, and the reason why they couldn't be there is because, there was a weather incident because it was snowing in Georgia and stuff like that, and there wasn't any planes that could get there, so the people who were there, they literally had to drive there and be there a couple days early. But, ever since Mariah May has left and gone to NXT, I think she's been doing a good job. The only thing that I worry about is that her gimmick is way too sexual for the WWE audience. I mean, I know this is the WWE audience we're talking about, but, I know it's a PG show, and I'm not sure if they're gelling with her right. Apparently, from everything that I've read on the internet, you either like her or you don't, and her matches are either not your cup of tea or you absolutely love it. Me personally, I've not watched any of her NXT stuff just because, like I said, I really don't have time. And it's not because I dislike her or anything, because I've been keeping up with her stuff at a glance. But, it's whatever. I just hope that in 2026 she can move up to the main roster. She can win either the Women's Intercontinental Championship, get a feud with Becky Lynch. We could use that in this world. Or she goes to SmackDown and gets that U.S. title, and we could use a feud with her and Chelsea Green. Yes, please. Yes, please. And, Toni Storm. This is just my opinion, but in my opinion, Toni Storm is probably the women's wrestler of this decade, without a shadow of a doubt. The thing that I feel like she does better than almost anybody in wrestling is she knows how to be a character, because that's one thing that just seems to be gone from modern wrestling. Everybody goes out there and they're themselves, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but your character is that you're a wrestler. I mean, congratulations, we're all wrestlers here. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? And Toni Storm just knows how to make the crowd boo, cheer, laugh, cry, shock, dispense. She knows how to do it all, man. And her character, it is way too sexual in my opinion. But in all fairness, we're kind of in a little bit of a renaissance when it comes to sexuality and stuff like that. And I really think that when all the dirt settles and we're looking back on it in 20 years, I really will feel like we'll be saying that she was doing God's work. And as a wrestler, I will be honest with you, she's kind of a punch-kick wrestler, but she gets a lot of inspiration from John Cena because she knows how to tell a story with her body. And the way that she can get a crowd to invest into a match and the way that she builds up to finishes and stuff like that, I mean, she's really good at her job. I'll just say that. Overall, man, this match was my women's and AEW women's match of the year just because they went out there and they told an excellent story, had an excellent brawl. And like I said, I love seeing blood in wrestling. And this is, I think, one of the first times that I really saw women bleed in a match. And, it's a very touchy subject because, just don't want to be sexist or anything. But it was just very refreshing to see two people, especially two women, just go out there and just have a fucking fist fight and, just bleed everywhere. I loved it. I just thought it was great, man. Coming in our number 2 spot, we have Konosuke Takeshita versus Will Ospreay from Spring Break through Dynamite. Oh my God, this match was fantastic, dude. As you all know on this channel, I'm a Will Ospreay stan. I'm a nerd. I think he is easily the greatest wrestler on the planet. Konosuke Takeshita, I love him. I think he's a great wrestler. One thing that he really struggles with is building a character and making people care. But man, these two just went out there on Dynamite and they just had a barn burner of a match. I remember that I was watching it live and just they were doing so much unbelievable stuff. I mean, easily my favorite spot of the match is Will Ospreay. He comes off the ropes and he messes up. And instead of doing what most wrestlers do and looking at the floor and being bewildered, he literally transitioned to the next spot. And I remember Takeshita gave him an elbow to the back of the skull. And I was like, oh my God, dude, that's it. And then after that, he hit him with a blue thunder bomb. And, he kicked out and somehow they got up. And, Will Ospreay, he did a clothesline transition into a Styles Clash and all this just fantastic and amazing stuff. And, dude, I know I'm not really giving it as much story as I've given every other match, but, dude, this is one of those matches you just have to go out and watch, just like every other match on this list. But, man, they just went out there and they had such a fucking killer match, dude. I mean, Will Ospreay, dude, before he got his neck injury and he had to step away, in my opinion, he was going to be the superstar and the wrestler this year because his wrestling style is just everything that I like. And Takeshita's come a long way, let me tell you. Coming out just the crowds being dead silent to getting with Don Callis and then, him beating Kenny Omega at All Out 2023 and then him just being on his steadfast road to glory and him winning the G1 Climax this year and winning the ugliest IWGP Championship. Thank God at this past Wrestle Kingdom we have the better IWGP Championship, but man, these two just went out there and they had a barn burner. You got to go watch it, man. And now that we've talked about the matches from number 10 to number 2, now we're going to give out some shout-outs to the honorable matches of the year. And the honorable matches are Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa on the debut episode of Raw, Seth Rollins versus CM Punk on the debut episode of Raw, Chad Gable versus Penta, the Women's Royal Rumble, the Men's Royal Rumble, Orange Cassidy versus Takeshita from Dynamite, Kenny and Ospreay versus Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher from Australia Grand Slam, the Hurt Syndicate versus the Guns, aka the Ass Boys, on an episode of Dynamite in a tag team match, Edge versus Jon Moxley from the Nebraska episode of Dynamite, March 19th, 2025. This is the match where Jon Moxley got the spike in his back. That match was fantastic, dude. The next match that we have is the 8-man All-Star Tag from April 30th, 2025 Dynamite. This match had Kenny Omega, Speedball Mike Bailey, Kevin Knight, Mark Demboys Briscoe versus the Young Bucks Ricochet and the modern-day GOAT Okada. Then after that, we have Gunther versus Pat McAfee at Backlash. I love this match because Pat just got his ass whooped, dude, all the chops and all that stuff. The next match that we have is Seth Rollins versus CM Punk in the Steel Cage match from Raw. Randy Orton versus Joe Hendry. I love this match specifically because Joe Hendry come out, he does his entrance, and then he gets hit in the RKO after doing his emote. That was so funny. Then after that, controversial, we get John Cena versus Cody Rhodes from WrestleMania 41. The TLC match with DIY, the Motor City Machine Guns, and the Street Profits from the episode of SmackDown. John Cena versus R-Truth from Saturday Night's main event. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre in a steel cage from Saturday Night's main event. TLC number 2 from SummerSlam 2025 Night 2. Swerve and Will Ospreay versus the Young Bucks at All In Texas. Then after that, we have Swerve versus Will Ospreay from Blockbuster Dynamite. Mystico versus MJF at Mexico Grand Slam. Sorry about that. Jey Uso versus Cody Rhodes from 6/23/25 Raw. Nigel McGuinness versus Zack Sabre Jr. from Forbidden Door. The Lights Out match, the Lights Out Steel Cage match from Forbidden Door 2025 as well. Tony Storm versus Sky Blue in a Philly Street Fight from 9/10/2025 Dynamite, a.k.a. from the 2300 Arena. Then after that, we get John Cena versus AJ Styles from Crown Jewel, Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe at WrestleDream, the very first women's Blood and Guts match, Obafemi versus Cody Rhodes at John Cena's retirement show, John Cena versus Gunther at John Cena's retirement show, Jon Moxley versus Kyle Fletcher at World's End 2025, and for the very last match on our honorable mentions list, we have Willow Nightingale versus Mercedes Moné at New Year's Smash. And coming in at our number 1 spot as the match of the year for 2025, it is Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page in the Texas Death Match at All In Texas. Oh man, dude, what a match that this was. So let's start from the beginning. So we get the start of the Owen Hart tournament, and Will Ospreay declares, and he makes it all the way to the semifinals, and so does Hangman Adam Page. They do a promo on Dynamite where they talk about who needs the win more. Hangman needs it for his redemption arc so he can start becoming a better person, not only in his life and for his family. And then we get Will Ospreay. He wants to win the tournament so he can show everybody back home that the journey was worth it, and so he can complete his ascension into the main event of AEW. And this was going into Double or Nothing, and as per usual, I was working and I didn't get to watch the match. One thing I will say is that I was very upset that Will Ospreay didn't win. Now, I will say this was before I found out that he was injured or any of that stuff, and I was so pissed off that for the next 2 months, I pretty much enjoyed WWE over AEW, which is something that I kind of regret, but I don't regret. But, yeah. But Hangman winning the match, I remember not being a fan of it, but I remember they started the build towards him and Jon Moxley at All in Texas, and man, the build was fantastic. I mean, him coming out in black hat, and I remember, Marina Shafir hit him in the head, and he hit her with a buckshot lariat on accident. And I remember them, having their little standstill at Grand Slam Mexico, and then we get to the actual match at All in Texas. This match was just fantastic from start to finish, man. I mean, let's just talk about it. So, for Hangman, they did a little special entrance where they had, this lady whistling and this guy playing the guitar. And then after that, Hangman came out to his original babyface theme for the first time, and he came out on the other side of the entrance. And I remember that Excalibur was talking about how he had, worked with some immigrants whenever he was younger on a tobacco farm, and I just thought that was beautiful considering all the stuff that's going on with the ice and all that stuff. And then I remember he wanted to come out on a horse, but he just he said in the documentary that the horse was spooked and that you shouldn't do it, and I completely agree. Thank you, Hangman. And then after that, Jon Moxley made his final entrance as the AEW World Champion, and he came out in a sick-ass truck, and the way that the song sounded in the arena was fantastic. And then the actual bell rang. So I remember that they did a little lockup, and then after that, they got the forks out, and then after that, they just, they went on. There was a spot where they did like a suplex on a table with barbed wire on it. And I remember they got these spikes out, and, Jon Moxley did the Death Rider. And then I remember there was a table set up on the outside, but Will Ospreay came, and the Death Riders, they took him out. And then, in my opinion, the highlight of that whole show and the whole match was when, the Death Riders were about to do something, and Darby came on the screen, and he said that he was on top of the world, and he was coming back to get the Death Riders. And then Blue Panther, a.k.a. Bryan Danielson, slid in the ring, and he hit a Bisaiku knee. And boy, let me tell you, that whole place was just going insane, dude. Everybody was chanting, yes, 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 yes. And it was just awesome. And then after that, Darby came from the ceiling. He literally rappelled down just like Sting. And then he hit a coffin drop. And then after that, him and Hangman, they went at it. And then he literally wrapped a chain around his neck after Swerve gave it to him. And he literally hung him over the rope. And Jon Moxley tapped out. And one of the best parts of the whole match was when Hangman was able to get the key from Marine Shafir, and he unlocked the briefcase, and there it was, the AEW Men's World Heavyweight Championship. And it's like I said in that video, it was one of the greatest matches that I've ever seen, and in my opinion, it was one of the best matches from both of their careers. I mean, I'll be completely honest with you guys. The reason why the All In 2025 video happened was because I literally enjoyed the show so much that I literally reviewed it 3 hours later and had recorded footage that night and uploaded it the next day because I had that day off because I remember asking for that weekend off. I mean, that's how influential the pay-per-view was, and I'm not going to lie, it was so influential that I literally have been saying on this channel several times that I want to go back to the very first non-AEW pay-per-view, all in 2018, and I want to review every single AEW pay-per-view and all the special episodes of Dynamite just because, it's like I keep saying, I work all the time and I just don't have time to watch all the regular episodes. That's how much of an impression All in Texas 2025 and this match in particular set for me. This was also during the time where, I'm still at the same job that I work, but there was just this girl who was just, not very nice, and she was a bully. And this was also 2 weeks before I got my PlayStation 5, and, this is right when I bought my PS5, and I got Silent Hill 2 as my very first game, and here's the very first clip that I ever recorded on my PS5. And that's kind of what All in Texas and what that match represents. It represents good times because I remember I woke up, me and my dad and my grandpa, we went to, a Zaxby's and we got something to eat. And I remember my dad was saying, oh man, Will, I'm going to go swimming after a couple matches. And it was so good that it made him stay to watch everything. And I'll never forget how high of a high that was because literally right after that, things just like started going good in my life again. Got the PS5, started making videos again, and that leads us to where we are right now, where I'm recording this video, because that's how good this match and that whole show was. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my AEW and my 2025 match of the year. And now that we have the matches of the year out of the way, now I wanted to talk about the promos of the year. So the promos of the year for me were Jon Moxley being called a malcontent by Cope on an episode of Collision. I'm going to lace up my boots and put on some baby oil, just the right amount of baby oil on my skin, on the SmackDown leading up to WrestleMania by Randy Orton. John Cena and Randy Orton's promo from Dallas. Dude, I'm not going to lie, that show was so fucking good, and that promo was awesome because it reminded me of whenever I was a kid. Ricky telling Trek that it's his house and that Trek needs to get out and he's going to get the keys and lock him out. That was excellent because Ricky Starks, he's one of my favorite wrestlers at the moment, and he's not there of all time, but he's getting there. And Trick, I love Trick, but man, he really struggles with selling, and his promos are kind of all over the place. But you could definitely see that all the pieces are there. They just need to put all the puzzle together. John Cena turning face in New Jersey. New Jersey, right before the match with Cody at SummerSlam, where they got the Bears out, and he was just like, "Well, if you want some, come get some." That was awesome. Cody Rhodes and John Cena from England Raw. In my opinion, that is the promo of the year from WWE. And at some point, I would like to review John Cena and Cody Rhodes, their whole arc, because I thought their story was fantastic. One of my favorite promos of the year was Jey Uso and Gunther, where he came out and he smacked the microphone out of his hand, and he said, I saw you wipe my brother's blood all over you, and you were acting strange. And he said, but you know what? I'm not scared. He said, I'm going to say a prayer for me, more so for you. And he said, because I'm going to get you for me, Uso, I'm going to get you for my whole family. And that was just great. MJF's return promo on Dynamite, boy oh boy, he just put everybody in their place, and he shows that he's the best promo in AEW, in my humble opinion. And my promo of the year is Hangman needing the AEW title for his redemption, while Ospreay needs it to solidify his ascension to be the greatest of all time, leading up until Double or Nothing 2025. Now on to the shows of the year from both WWE and AEW. I'm going to do this as a two-parter, so let's get this going. So, the second show of the year for me from WWE was the Royal Rumble. Now, as you all know, I've told the story several times at this point, but this is when I had COVID-19, so I was able to take a couple days off, and I thought this show was fantastic. I thought that the men's Royal Rumble match was fantastic because, it had John Cena, Joe Henry, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, it had Jey Uso, it had Otis, it had that excellent moment where Braun speared Ice Show Speed out of his boots. And I know a lot of people, in retrospect, are not very happy that John Cena got eliminated in his last Royal Rumble by Jey Uso, but I thought that was the right choice, and saying that was just such an excellent moment. And then the Women's Royal Rumble, Alexa Bliss returning, Charlotte returning, Bianca Belair doing the 10 punches in the corner. That stuff was awesome. And then, it had Izzy Dame and all them and all that stuff, and I just thought that match was great. Now, the Motor City Machine Guns match was not very good just because, it wasn't getting the time it needed, and it was more so used to prop up the Men's Royal Rumble after a burnt-out crowd. And then my WWE match of the year, Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. I thought that match was just so damn awesome, man. I mean, I can't talk about it enough. And one day I would like to look at that feud as well. But it might not be an opinion that most people will share publicly or online, but my show of the year was WrestleMania 41 from WWE. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. With the exception of the main events from WrestleMania 40 last year, I thought this show blew that show out of the water. I didn't think Sami Zayn Gunther was great until the teardrop brainbuster. I didn't think LA Knight and AJ had a good match. They actually had a better match on SmackDown, in my opinion. And I remember the ladder match being kind of horrific, if I could be honest with you. And the Jey Uso and the Jey and Jimmy match from WrestleMania 40 was just dog shit, in my opinion. But WrestleMania 41, I thought the stage was better because it was literally a hotel casino. And I thought that the colors were great. And I actually bought the WrestleMania 41 Pro Spear shirt. And this is a picture of it right now. And honestly, dude, the lows on this show were not that good. Obviously, the War Raiders versus the New Day didn't have the time that it needed to shine. And if I can be honest, for me personally, I would honestly argue that was the... Oh, and obviously, Bayley getting replaced by Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyrie to win the women's tag championships for literally not even a day. But besides those two matches, I thought everything else on the show blew WrestleMania 40 out of the water, and this is also just my opinion, but I thought that WrestleMania 41 was the best WrestleMania since WrestleMania 2020, aka 36, which had the Boneyard match in the Firefly Funhouse, and Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte. And WrestleMania 41, in my opinion, was just awesome. CM Punk main eventing his very first WrestleMania against Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, and what a story that match told. Him coming out to This Fire Burns and then coming out to Cult of Personality. And then after that, we had that excellent Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre street fight. I also thought that the women, Rhea, Io, and Bianca Belair, they put on probably the greatest women's WrestleMania match of all time next to Charlotte and Rhea Ripley from WrestleMania 36 and 39. And I also thought that the Jey Uso Gunther match was fantastic. Now, I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I loved it. And let's talk about, the big elephant in the room. Oh, yeah, I almost forgot before we get to that. The Braun Breaker, Penta, Finn Balor, and Dominic Mysterio IC title match was fantastic. And then let's get to the match of the minute. So, John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. I thought that Cody's entrance was great. I thought that John Cena's entrance was great. And here's the thing, was it the most electrifying match on the show? Absolutely not. Was it better than any of the matches that I mentioned? Probably not. But I will say this, up until Travis Scott came out, I actually thought it was an excellent match because it's like I've said before, the one thing that a lot of people on the WWE roster really lack is what John Cena wrestles. He wrestles a story-based match, and he does it with simplistic moves. I understand a lot of people think that he can't wrestle, which is not something that I believe. And Cody Rhodes, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time in my opinion, but people just want to remember Stardust. I mean, if you're asking me, go look at what he did after he left and then, come back to me. But yeah, man, up until Travis Scott came out, I thought it was a really good, serviceable main event. And that kind of soured the whole thing for a lot of people is because, The Rock didn't show up and do his job. And poor Travis Scott, I don't like him. I don't even think he should be in wrestling. But he was paid to do a job, and unlike The Rock, he showed up. And I'll be completely honest with you guys, I don't like the way that Cena won the belt with some retrospect. But the reason why it was a big deal for me in the moment is because I got to see my childhood hero win his 17th world title. And I turned on Cody just for the match just because, John Cena is, my childhood hero. He is my GOAT. The Undertaker is my favorite wrestler of all time, and then it's next to him. And those two are my front faces on my Mount Rushmore. So, yeah, it was more of an emotional moment for me. But, yeah, I don't really think WWE put on many great shows after WrestleMania 41. Like, I thought all the Saturday night main events were great, and some Raws and some SmackDowns were excellent. But I didn't think SummerSlam was anything special. I thought the only good match on the show was Cena and Cody Rhodes on night 2. I didn't really think Survivor Series was that good because, Blood and Guts happened 2 weeks earlier. And, I mean, I loved John Cena's final show, but that's really about it. I just thought that bell-to-bell WWE did a great job last year, but in my opinion, it doesn't compare to AEW. And besides that, it was just a so-so. So if you're asking me personally, I'll give it to WrestleMania 41 for WWE. Now let's talk about AEW. I'm going to do my best to keep this brief because if I don't, we're going to be here for 4 hours, and I don't think a lot of people will want to listen. So I'll just keep it brief. Going from 2024, I thought AEW was excellent because it was the very first time that I ever got to watch it. And then going into 2025, it was on a bit of a slow roll. And I really don't think they got the ball rolling until Christopher Daniels and Hangman had that excellent Texas death match on Maximum Carnage Collision. And whenever I got to go to AEW, in my opinion, that's when AEW finally started to get the role that it was on. Because that's when Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega jumped off, the balcony and the scaffolding. And that's when the Hurt Syndicate won the tag titles. That's when MJF and Hangman started their feud. And that's when the Death Riders continued their stuff with Cope. And that led into Australia Grand Slam, which in my opinion was one of the best shows of 2025. Excellent tag match with Cope and Jay White versus Jon Moxley and Claudio, if I'm not mistaken. Easily the match of the night for me personally was Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita. I mean, everything was excellent about that match, and the finish was awesome because they did a hidden blade into a one-winged angel. And then after that, I remember Will Ospreay did a backstage promo, which was also one of my favorite promos of the whole year. He said, Kyle, I heard you were talking about stuff, and guess what? Revolution, steel cage, bruv, and that was awesome. And the main event between Mariah May and Toni Storm was excellent. I just didn't really appreciate that it ended in a small package. But in all fairness, that led to, my women's match of the year and probably my favorite women's match in AEW history, the Hollywood ending. And that's the whole point I'm really trying to make with all the AEW shows, is that literally one thing led to another, and it led to more and more and more greatness. I mean, here's the thing. I'm looking at a list of shows that I would say were the shows of the year, but I can name so many episodes of Dynamite that I just thought were not only the best Dynamite I've ever seen, but one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. And it's like I mentioned earlier, the Nebraska episode with Mox and Cope, the episode that I got to go to, the 2300 Arena show where it had Claudio and Orange Cassidy, I'm sorry, but Darby main event when they had that street fight, and then the episode where Toni Storm and Sky Blue had a match, and that's the only point that I'm really trying to make. I genuinely thought that AEW went on a tear this year, and AEW, probably not a controversial opinion if you watch this channel, but AEW is my favorite wrestling promotion of all time, and at the moment, and AEW Dynamite has easily surpassed SmackDown as my favorite show of all time. I literally only look forward to watching Dynamite every week just because I know what I'm getting is the best part of the show, and everybody puts on the best match that they can. And going to Dynamite was so great, and it is my favorite wrestling show that I've ever been to, and I would love to go to a Collision, would love to go to a Ring of Honor show, would love to go to a pay-per-view from AEW, and the ultimate thing is I want to go to an All-In at some point. And since we're already here, I'll give you guys some of my shows of the year. the Blockbuster Dynamite, New Year's Smash, Grand Slam Mexico, Grand Slam Australia, Blood and Guts, and then the pay-per-views. I thought Wrestle Dream was awesome because I got to be on vacation and I got to watch that. Sting coming out to help Darby was fantastic. Mark Briscoe and Kyle Fletcher had a match of the night. Konosuke Takeshita versus Brodito was fantastic. One of the best matches on the whole show was Jurassic Express versus, the Young Bucks. And I mean, that whole show was just fantastic. And then Revolution, dude, what a show Revolution was. 4 of the greatest AEW matches of all time and 4 match of the year contenders. The Hollywood ending, and then MJF, or I'm sorry, not MJF, but Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher, Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet, and then what is the other match? I can't really even think of it. I'm sorry about that. But also, it had an excellent opener with MJF versus Hangman Adam Page, and then oh my God, Spring Breakthrough Dynamite. I'm gonna have to be honest with you guys. The week of WrestleMania for me was nothing but a high, and I don't mean a high as in drugs or anything, but just love and excitement. Spring Breakthrough Dynamite was probably the best episode of Dynamite this year, if I'm being completely honest. The excellent match between Mercedes Moné and Athena, one of the best matches I've ever seen on Dynamite, with Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita since, MJF and Will Ospreay from episode 250. And then the main event being the Death Riders losing the Trios titles to, Powerhouse Hobbs, Shibata, and Hook because Pac got injured the previous week. And that led into an excellent episode of Thursday Collision Thursday, and that led into an awesome episode of Friday Night SmackDown where Cody Rhodes and John Cena cut an excellent promo, and then getting to see a little bit of night 1 after I got off of work, and getting off of work at night 2 and getting to watch the rest of the show, then watching Monday Night Raw, which was excellent, and then that led into an awesome episode of NXT, which led to another episode of excellent Dynamite, and that's just all I'm trying to say. And then obviously my show of the year, All in Texas. I mean, it's like I said, All in Texas really is like a placeholder in my life just because of everything that was going on, because it led to me getting my PS5 after a couple week build, and that was also just me becoming happier, and that literally led to me making a pay-per-view review, unscripted, unprompted, as soon as I got done watching the show 3 hours later. I mean, 2025, like bell to bell, just blew 2024 out of the damn water. And I mean, I know a lot of people might not agree, but I mean, it was just fantastic. And now for the very last part of our video, we're going to be talking about the Men's Wrestler of the Year and the Women's Wrestler of the Year from WWE and AEW. From WWE, my Women's Wrestler of the Year will have to go to Io Sky just because I think she's been carrying the women's division. Even though I'm not a big fan of her, I prefer Stephanie Vaquer or Rhea Ripley or Tiffany. I will give it to Io. And for the men's, it's definitely not something that most people would agree with, but for me personally, it's just going to have to be John Cena. The reason why I say it's John Cena is because everything that he did was must-see TV. I'm not saying all of his matches were great. If you ask me that opinion, I'd have to give it to Cody Rhodes. But yeah, seeing John Cena go out on top and just relishing and taking in all of the last times we got to see him was absolutely fantastic. Now on to the women's side of AEW, I'm going to give it to obviously Timeless Toni Storm. Best promo in the game, best wrestler on that roster, and in my opinion, nothing at the moment is even touching anything that she is doing. And my Men's Wrestler of the Year for AEW is going to have to be Hangman Adam Page. And just like that, that's the men and women, Superstar Wrestler of the Year for WWE and AEW. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we have covered everything that I have wanted to cover in this video. I apologize that it took so long. But yeah, hopefully wrestling in 2026 will be even better. I mean, this video was recorded in December and January. And I will say, so far, this year's not been the best. I mean, the 3 Stages of Hell match between Drew and Cody was great. Kevin Knight versus Swerve Strickland in the main event of Dynamite the other week was fantastic. But I do feel like it's taken a little bit longer for both of the companies to get their wheels a-rolling. But yeah, tell me guys what you thought of AEW, WWE, and all of professional wrestling in 2025. And I hope to see you guys in the very next video. Peace out and have a good day.